Monday. Watch John and Scott eat tendies while sipping dew on the podcast known as
Trapped Under Plastic?
Is it a question? There's a sign in case you forgot.
Oh, yeah. Okay, good. This is the correct podcast. Trapped Under Plastic, the podcast where Scott caves to social pressure and covers his legs.
This is true. You guys can't handle my white pasty hot dogs.
Yeah, we're hot dogs.
You ever seen those memes where people are like, they take a picture of their thigh like this, and they're like, hot dogs or legs? And it's like actually kind of hard.
Yeah, I mean, those hot dogs do make me hard. Oh.
All right.
Speaking of legs, though, I do have something to share with the goody peepees. It is fucking Mountain Dew Socks Day in the hood.
Safe for work? What is going on?
Oh, yeah. Look at
John's taking his shoes off and showing off some lovely Mountain Dew socks for the audio listeners who can't enjoy this fucking spectacle.
As I was getting ready this morning, making my daughter some Eggo waffles, she's like, "Oh, are you wearing Christmas socks?" I'm like, "Even better."
She was like, "Oh, that's kind of lame."
She's like, "You do like Mountain Dew." Like, you drink a lot of that. I'm like, listen.
When you grow up, you'll get it.
we all have our vices. Mine is mystery flavor voodoo.
Yeah, yours is just like fancy drinks. You always swing by with a new bubbly fancy drink.
I was drinking white gummy bear energy drink on the drive up.
That's
so yeah,
1,000% out. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, I got a couple things to talk about in the Preamble Ramble.
Yes,
today.
he does. My God, he has a fucking list.
All right, so
checking it twice.
You know, this one goes out to all the soft cookie people in the world.
We're winning.
No, we're not winning. You're not winning.
Yeah, I was gonna say, wait, are you a convert?
No. Okay, so Oreo, the Hard Cookie Nation flag bearer, has, I don't know if these are brand new or I just came across them and made me throw up my mouth a little bit. They're called Oreo Cakesters.
Dude.
And they are the soft cookie version of Oreos. So riddle me this. Like, who's like, yeah, screw regular Oreos. I want these mushy ass Oreos that are pre-chewed and pre-saliva filled.
Now I don't need milk to sock them up.
Oh, no.
I can just pop them back endlessly and drink soda instead with my cookies.
I mean,
I'm
an open-minded American, okay? I'm open to new things. So the next time we do a hangout and watch YouTube videos until 4 a.m. and eat snacks, we'll get each. We'll get the double stuff,
okay,
regulars,
okay,
and then we'll get these cakesters.
Okay.
And then I'll get fiery as fuck at 3 a.m. talking about how horrible these things are.
Yeah, it's just like an affront to nature.
Yeah, that's terrible. Just simply terrible. I don't know if anyone's going to get that reference, but I bet a couple of goody peepees will.
I like how we're past the point of you asking me if I got that reference, because
No.
I just don't get any of them. I have no idea what he's talking about. Okay, my turn. I played Age of Sigmar for the first time in many years. Maybe, well, not many years, but the last time I played was when we went to Vince's house, which was 2 years ago at least.
Yeah, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
That was before Age of Sigmar 3.0.
Yes. So a couple things about that. I'm in an escalation league called War of the Northern Princes because we're fucking edgy and we need a name. Wow. And we're in Minnesota, so Northern is cool. So we played our first game, 500 points, and shockingly, it was a very dynamic game. There was lots of movement, lots of strategy regarding capping objectives. Like, there were multiple times when I kind of appreciated this about the game. There were multiple times where it made more sense to retreat than it did to stay in combat.
I like that.
Because, like, certain things, like, for instance, like my direwolves, I charged in with my direwolves, used all-out attack, plus slavering charge. I was like, okay, I'm going to kill one of these Nurgling bases. Because, like, when you don't kill a Nurgling base, it just heals up. So it's like, there's no point staying in combat. I wanted to pop one off, and I didn't do that. And I was, like, starting to, like, kind of get disease on me and dying because of it. So I retreated away, and I retreated to an objective, which felt really good. So there's a lot of moments like that, which felt really great. And I was really surprised. But the second thing I want to say is it was AOS 3.0, but it didn't really feel any different than 2.0. And I think it's because I just didn't really do my homework and like look into all of the crazy things you can spend command points on as reactions. Because that's the biggest difference, right? Or is there more?
Well, From the sounds of it, you already did some of the stuff, which is the generic command point uses.
Oh, like heroic actions? Is that one of those things?
Yeah, heroic actions or like the all-out attack, all-out defense.
Yeah, so I did those things.
Those are
yes.
in 3.0.
That felt good too, because it always feels bad to have like a combat that you're kind of like hoping is going to go well, and then kind of doesn't. I actually really appreciate that about A Song of Ice and Fire. When you charge, you get rerolls to kind of balance that. So with all-out attack, my blinds are hitting out fucking 2s.
Yeah, dude, that hurts.
Dude, it was 16 attacks hitting out 2s, and the horses hit on 3s and have 15 attacks. Everyone's dying, dude. It's
just
great.
Trampling some bitches.
Dude, Blood Knights are brutal, and then the whole Riders of Ruin thing is insane too.
Yeah, that was one thing that I was thinking about when you were telling me about the game. Was like, when you're playing at a lower point level, some of the army-wide abilities you get, they're imbalanced. And this is a great example of like all the buffs that Blood Knights get. When it's spread across an entire army, it's less of an impact. It's still good, but when it's a unit that's fast, it's hard to kill, and it's killy. In a small point game, they can kind of just run rampant. They did.
I feel so bad for John. They're like, I feel like my army is a counter to Nurgle, because whenever he was putting disease on me, whenever you heal, you can alternatively take off 1 disease point, and of course vampires heal with the hunger constantly.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Yeah, and he had this thing that didn't allow me to pile in. He had his sloppity bile piper.
Ooh, slippity boopity boo,
playing some tune, and it didn't let me pile in.
Flute?
Yeah, his toot flute, and I couldn't pile in, but it didn't matter with Riders of Ruin, because I could just move out of combat,
charge again,
deal damage while moving, and then charge again. And I was just like, holy cow. So that felt super
Blood
strong.
Knights are really good against them, but that army is hard to kill.
Yes,
it's hard to bring down,
and he's summoning demons so much too.
Which is tough. Did he account for that in his points, in his 750 or?
No, he was just summoning whole new units.
No. Oh, did they already have to be killed units?
No,
and then he wasn't doing it right. You don't just get free stuff.
I thought Vince, when we played him a long time ago, was summoning whole new things.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe certain armies. Oh, because it's based off of his points that he accumulates.
Contagion points.
Yeah, and you're right. I don't think you have to pay for those.
Okay. So do we have we don't have a way to summon things just new, right? So
no, you can just bring them back.
Okay.
So what happens is once a unit is killed all the way, it only costs you 1 command point. And you can bring them back on any gravesite.
Oh my God.
But they have to enter in a wholly outside of 9 inches of an enemy unit. So if your enemy is smart and they have enough units, they can kind of cover your gravesite so you can't bring shit back.
But it's hard though.
You'll often stick like a unit of skeletons or wolves or something on your back lines anyway, with kind of around to claim an objective, and 2 be near a gravesite. So you're kind of playing defense so you can bring back that unit, and if they try to crash into your skeletons to take your thing, you're like, oh, I popped up a unit of 10 graveguards, so whatever you just brought all the way over here to kill those is just going to get murdered by these graveguard. So Graveguard are your next thing to deal with, Scott, because they are the true blenders of the army.
I've been trying to think of ways to like convert them and make like fancy Graveguard using like the Sepulchral Guard kit and like other like Underworlds kits and stuff like that.
New ones coming out, baby.
Yeah,
those are Graveguard.
Yeah.
The problem is they're almost all sword and shield ones, and you want to use the 2-hander ones.
The axes.
Yeah, you can use a giant sword, you could use a giant glaive, you could use a giant axe, whatever you want, but those are the bee's knees. The tough thing about Graveguard are they're slow as shit.
Yeah.
And they die easy.
So you need Halgrim, bro. Halgrim lets them move twice their movement speed because they're a death rattle unit, right?
Usually you screen them.
Yeah.
You can also start with Soulblight Gravelards. You can start with undead stuff in the grave sites and pop them out.
Yes.
So usually what people will do is they'll wait till you move shit up, and then they'll pop out a unit of Graveguard behind your army, and like you have to deal with them, or they will just murder every hero back there.
Yeah, dude.
Or you screen them with a unit of skeletons, and they have to crash into skeletons, and then your counter strike is just devastating. So there's strategy, but it's also, if you don't do it right, the Graveguard can be a big point sink and then just get killed if you don't do it right.
I can definitely see that happening.
Blood Knights are a little bit more easy to handle.
They're fucking Space Marines, bro.
Yeah.
They have 3-ups, they hit on 3s, they wound on 3s. They have 3 wounds apiece. Unless you have Castelli, which I do have Castelli Knights, and whenever they kill something, they get various bonuses. And so I killed a Nurgle Beast, which gave them, I think, absorbed vitality. So each had 4 wounds.
Ugh.
And I killed a unit of 10 plague barriers with them, which gave them extra 2 inches when charging and running.
Oh, lordy.
Something speed. So, man, they were just zipping around and fucking killing everything.
Yeah, they get power-ups.
Yeah, they do.
That's pretty fun.
I also have something called Shifting Keep, so I can actually have the knights off in reserves as well. So I don't know if this would have been smart, but I could have deployed just my hero and have everything else in reserves if I wanted to.
The only problem is that first turn you don't get a movement though. It happens at the end of the movement phase.
Yeah. Okay.
But if you can make the charge, you got to make a 9-inch charge, and you didn't have your +2 to charge yet. You can basically take them out of a fight the entire round 1.
Yeah.
Which is rough,
Yeah.
especially when you're using so few units and you're arming in a small point game.
That's true. We were playing on a 33 or 32 inch by 44 inch board, or no, it was 30 by 44, which I believe is what GW recommends. Which is small and intimate. I think we were going to do a 4 by 4 foot table, but that would have been way too big, and we were able to get. Like, he charged me turn 1 with his Beast of Nurgle. And almost, I can't remember who he charged. I think it was my commander. He almost killed him, like, right away. Because he can run and charge, and he auto-ran with a command point.
He just
it's like
a big old slug running.
I know. I was like, I didn't think Nurgle were fast, but this guy's turning me to, so yeah, he got to me.
Yeah, a smaller board, again, there's another thing of the game is balanced around all the things around 2,000 points, and one of them is board size.
Yeah.
So movement range is based around the board being a certain size, and one of the biggest, if not the biggest downside to Nurgle is their speed.
Yeah.
They're slow as shit in general, other than the dudes on the bugs. And so you kind of gave him a little bit of a bonus by getting closer.
Yep.
So you're probably playing like a Warcry size board then?
That's what it seems like. Regarding the double turn, I double turned him twice. He double turned me once. I feel like mine were a little bit more effective. They came at more advantageous moments for me. Because I charged him with I charged his Beast of Nurgle with my Blood Knights. I couldn't kill him in one activation, but that double turn, then I could kill him. So, but then he summoned another one, so I didn't feel bad.
Don't feel bad. You get more.
Anyways, yeah, escalation.
You had fun, though.
I had fun. I had fun. I will admit, it was a lot of fun. I can't wait to play another one. If you want, we're doing probably 1 to 2 AOS games a month on the Twitch stream. Twitch.tv.miniac at 7 p.m. CST, and also the VODs are on the Twitch channel too. So if you want to catch that other one between me and Schaefer, Soulbite Greatlords versus Magakin of Nurgle, go check it out.
Cool.
All right. That was a long one. Sorry.
No, that was good though. I was interested in stuff. Okay, I got a couple things I want to talk about here. First of all, the last episode of the podcast, we asked goody peepees of the world to shout out if they entered the Golden Demon in the UK.
Yeah.
And we had some people that did. And one of them, let me just make sure I get his name right. Oh shit, where did I put this?
Tom Hughes?
Yes, I think Tom Hughes.
Yeah, Tom Hughes painted that bust, that big Tau bust, and also he DM'd me on Instagram and was like, "You and John are invited to the after party." And I was like, "This is so validating."
Yeah,
baby.
So yeah, Tom Hughes, who did the giant Tau bust that won first place in the open category.
Hell yeah, dude.
Demon. Woo, baby. One of us. It feels good. How does it feel to be part of the Goody Peepee army that's amassed more arms than possibly can be denied by the outsiders? Look, our wave will crash upon their shores.
Yeah, we're like a beast of chaos, just kind of along.
Dude, our tendrils are long and filled with suction cups.
Oh, yeah, we got tons. They're sticky.
Yeah, so, I mean, we appreciate every one of the Goody Peepees, and there may be a day where we call upon you to take up arms. We don't know who our enemy is yet.
This is turning into Fight Club.
But they will rue the day. So that's it. Also related to Golden Demon, Midwinter Minis put out a video recently where he brought on his friend that brought a bunch of different knights and stuff to Golden Demon, and he placed in the large model, something, 40K. And guy was working with him on like how to do a higher level quality for his Warlord Titan, and it was really cool. So you should check out that video if you haven't seen it. But in that video, he shows that his buddy was sipping on a variety of diet dews through the entire process.
Connoisseur.
And Guy said it was like noxious and stinky and whatever.
Oh, give me a break, guy. It's a fucking soda.
And to this I say, be careful, Guy.
We have an army.
And it sounds like your friend may in fact be part of the army.
Whether he knows it or not. He's been conscribed.
Yeah, he's like in the background. He's just like slowly pulling up this new Shitty Games Workshop hobby knife over Guy's shoulder. Oh, be careful, Guy.
Oh, I said conscribed. I meant conscripted. That's the word when you get drafted for the military, right?
Yes.
Okay,
a
cool.
conscript.
A conscript.
It's the but I mean, that is typically like the peasants that have to like go to war against knights, and they have like pitchforks and like little at wood chopping axes.
Yeah.
You know, the conscripts are like they're like the
militia.
I usually think of them as the speed bumps that all the cavalry run over. That's not what we're asking of the Goody Peepee Nation. No. Like, we're more like Voltron, where we all stand on each other's shoulders like we're in a water fight in a swimming pool. And so
transform into a larger, more capable.
Yes.
Okay, I got you.
Yes, that's how we fight.
Okay.
It's more like three goblins in a trench coat, really.
Yeah.
It's both sneaky and intimidating.
Okay, good.
What more do I have to say on this great preamble of rambles? Have you ever had Costco pizza?
Okay, I think I told you about it.
Okay.
Well, maybe not. Did you get the motorway?
No, the actual pizza that they sell at Costco at their like concession stand.
No, I haven't.
Oh man. So I had it again the other day. My wife and I went out to Costco to do some day shopping in the middle of the week, which is the only time to go to Costco. Don't go to Costco on the goddamn weekends.
Psychopath.
Yeah, like you want to stand in line for 17 hours.
Those giant fucking carts, dude. Oh my god, it's a war zone.
So we went on like a Wednesday over the lunch hour and get a slice of Costco pizza. First of all, it's like $2 for the massive slice of pizza, like the old school Sbarro slice of pizza from the mall.
Yeah.
And it is so good.
Oh my god, now I need to try it.
You need to go. Like, you take Amber for a little lunch date, middle of the week to Costco.
What a fucking shitty lunch date.
Dude, it's not bad. Also, you can get, for like $1.69, you can get a foot-long hot dog and a soda.
Wait, for $69, you can get a hot dog?
$1.69.
Costco, I see what you're fucking doing, you skeezes.
I mean, yeah, you want to slap that sucker with mustard, baby.
Oh, mayo, dude?
A little relish on there.
I don't know what the fuck that is.
So I kind of came to this conclusion. First of all, you can actually order whole pizzas from there too, which I have done before. You just call them up and you're like, I want a large cheese. Now, the only things are you can either get cheese, you can get pepperoni, or you can get Supreme. Those are the only options.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Keep it simple.
But it's a giant pizza, like, I don't know.
You're gesturing 4 feet wide right now.
It's massive. The pizza is massive. And it's $10. It's $10. So it's better than Domino's. It's better than Papa John's. It's better than Pizza Hut.
Oh my god.
And it's like half the price.
Do they do delivery?
No, you have to go.
GG.
You have to go. That's the downside.
What if they did delivery though?
You have to like physically call them up and just talk to Cheryl, who's working at the concession stand, and just put in your order. But it's done in 10 minutes.
That's amazing.
And so the moral of the story is Costco pizza, underrated pizza. I'm ready for your pizza review.
Okay.
And see what you have to say.
Don't sleep on Costco, y'all.
Yeah, don't sleep on the Costco pizza. Same with the Costco rotisserie chickens.
Brother, yes. The pot pies.
Yeah, the big Popeye too.
Yeah.
Popeye.
They're just so cheap, it's wild.
Yeah. So anyway, that was something I really needed to talk about in Preamble Ramble.
All right, I don't want to be painted.
I had another thing to talk about.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, my Argus got neutered on Tuesday.
Oh, that's what his nuts are. Okay.
Argus lost his nuts.
I was like, why did Argus have cashews in the first place?
Yeah, so he's almost 11 months now. And so we decided it was time for his long fucking hanging nuts to go. And he spent the rest of the day like standing up, looking between his legs, and then looking at me.
Are you serious?
Yeah, and then looking at between his legs and looking at me. Not like he was mad at me, but he was like,
What the fuck, bro?
what happened? What's going on? And he's got his little pain pills he takes in the morning, and he's been good as new ever since. He's a champion, though. I feel like Sarah was only giving him one pain pill with his breakfast, and you're supposed to be giving him two. And like from day one, he was just like, man, I'm good. And I'm like, man, this dog, he is fine without the nuts. So I'm hoping it will keep his rambunctiousness down a level or two. But he can be a demon child sometimes, which is tough because I hadn't taken him into the vet since July, and so I didn't know how much he was going to weigh. He weighed 99 pounds in July, and he's up to 140 in October.
Damn, that's twice the weight of Bullet.
Yeah, he's just like a Costco foot-long hot dog. He's just solid meat.
He's like 100 of those.
He would just eat those like. Suck them down. He wouldn't even chew them. Yeah. That dog. I'll have to bring him up for the podcast, and he'll just run around to destroy shit. He doesn't destroy shit on purpose. He just has no sense of where his body ends and another surface begins.
Right.
So he just runs into shit, and he's like, "Oh shit, I didn't know that was there." I'm like, "Dude, that is a wall." He will run down my stairs as fast as he can go, but like 3 feet after the stairs is the wall of the kitchen, and he doesn't stop. He just he's like Fast and Furious Tokyo drifts down the stairs into the wall and uses it to like slow him down. Uses the wall to just go doosh into the wall.
That.
And he has already cracked 2 parts of my drywall at my house.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Because
he's just body slamming walls.
Yes. He body slams walls. He thinks he can still go under the kitchen table.
Yeah.
I mean, technically he can, but he can't do it without knocking over all the chairs. So he goes under the table, knocks over all the chairs, comes out, looks at the chairs like, whoa, what happened there?
Yeah. Were those there before?
Oh, well, man, someone's knocking over chairs in here. He's completely oblivious that he will just, and he hip checks you like right at the knees. So he'll just like walk up behind you, and he likes to lean. So he'll like walk behind you. You don't know he's there, and he leans against the back of your knees, and you're just like, knocks you over. Little bastard. Anyway, that's all I have to say for Preamble Ramble today.
That's all.
That's all.
That's all. You know, I think we're 30 minutes into the episode. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, well, we painted.
You painted a lot of little Skelly boys here.
I did. So the way our schedule worked out for recording this episode was that it was 1 week after we recorded the last one. Mm-hmm. And so in between now and then, we've had 1 week to, come up with news, paint minis. But despite that, I've painted 10 skeletons.
That is no small feat.
That, for me, it seems so trivial, but for me, I did it. And I did it in 1 day.
Damn, dude.
So I painted one of them in like 3 hours. I think this front guy. And there are some things, actually, you know what? I lied. They're not totally done because I do want to, you see how this one has like a red edge highlight at the bottom of his robe?
Yes.
I didn't do that on all of them.
Oh, yes.
So I want to do that still, and I also want to put a sick freehand on that banner.
Yeah, I noticed that banner is missing your symbology.
Yes, and so I have that symbol that I definitely want to toss up there. I think I might do that on a live stream this next Tuesday. So I have to do those things. But I don't know, dude. I think I came in under an hour a model because I went from 8 to 4. I had a 1 hour break, so that's 7 hours, and I painted 9 models. So that's under an hour a model. That's like, I don't know, 50, 45 minutes.
The fade to the matte paint on the true metallics, especially on the armor.
Do you like that?
Really good.
Yeah, so I like that too.
Is that with a brush or is that an airbrush?
That's an airbrush. So I used a lot of airbrush. Not a lot. I mean, yeah, maybe a lot. But in the after party, I want to tell you about all the trials I went through to get the red that I was happy with. I went through like 6 or 7 different tests that I'll be in a video eventually. To kind of get to a point where it's like, this is a great red. That's 3 steps. Mm-hmm. That I felt like happy with. Because like, I think speed painting is all about just what you're happy with. Like, and we've said this before in the past. Like you need to know where you can cut corners, and you need to know like that you're happy with that end result. And so it's very personal, but also it's like you got to know what the end result is going to be before you make that choice, which is why I felt the need to experiment so much, because I didn't know what it would look like, and there were so many different ideas on how to paint stuff, so I wanted to try them all out.
And that's something I don't do often enough. And when I look back at like the army painting videos that I've done, it was like other than my very first one with the OCR Boner Boys, I did do a test model and was happy with each step going into it.
Nice.
Since that video, I didn't do it, and I felt like I hurt myself by not having exactly what I wanted the final product to look like, compared to in my head what it would. And it wasn't that it would have taken me more time to have it different. I just didn't make those decisions leading up to it.
Yeah, and if I can be totally honest with you, I have a very large Dark Eldar army that is like 30% painted, and the reason why I haven't really given it much thought anymore is because even though I made a video trying to find how I enjoyed painting the yellow color, I actually didn't end on a thing that made me happy. I think the result that I found wasn't actually good. And so, at least in my head, so I was like, but I still went forward with it, and I started painting like the vast majority of the army. But I've now, since recently, come up with a better idea for what I want yellow to look like in my army, and I think I can get there pretty easily without changing too much about the paint scheme. Yeah. And it's got me kind of reinvigorated to explore that 40K army again and paint it in that fun way. I want to like do more of a tan yellow with like black, because I love black and tan. Those two colors together look so fucking cool. It gives me like it's very like Spec Ops vibe.
Yeah,
like desert Spec Ops. So I want to do that.
Okay, and I think like this red that you've got here is a great example of, it's not simply spending more time, it's not simply doing more steps, it's making sure each of those steps does its job as best as possible.
Yes.
So you can do less steps,
yes,
and still be happy with it when you're done.
And even the organization of steps is important, right? Because like, so the very last thing I do is highlight the red cloth, but the very first thing I do is airbrush it. But I do the highlighting at the end because by that point I have made mistakes and potentially gotten silver on it or gotten some other color on it, and with that highlighting step I can solve those problems without having to solve them when they happen.
Right.
So it actually takes some training, like when I fuck up, to not immediately try to fix the problem, but just save that for its own individual step. That is also the highlighting step. So there's lots of like step organization that you can do that makes the process more efficient, that I want to talk about in that video.
Yeah.
But 10 skellies!
10 skellies.
I didn't end up using in that video because, or in that stream, because direwolves are a squad of 10 and not 5, and I can't use a squad of 5 direwolves and a squad of 10 skellies.
Yeah, that's actually a nerf to direwolves.
Kind of is, because like a screen is 10 fucking models now.
Yeah, because they were cheap and they were in 5s, and you could put them ass to nose and spread them out, so they covered a large arc. So a lot of people don't use as many direwolves anymore because of that. Typically 1 unit of 10 is still really good to have.
Yeah, they seem pretty good. Well, I don't know. I mean, I think when I throw in 20 skellies instead, those might feel better, because they have like Death Rattle and Deadwalkers have like even more special rules other than just being summonable, that I'm looking forward to use, especially with the Vampire Lord in the army.
Bro, you need some zombies in your life.
Do I? Are they worth it? I feel like it's like skeletons or zombies. You don't need both. Is that kind of the vibe you get too?
Actually, skellies, because they're in smaller units, so it kind of comes down to points.
Okay.
Because zombies per unit are 20 models.
Yeah.
And they're slightly more expensive than skeletons, but like that extra 15 points when you're really getting to the end of your 2,000 points of like trimming the fat so you get an extra unit or whatever. Skeletons are solid there.
Yeah, because they're just like a lower. They're 80 points for 10 or something like that.
Yeah. And zombies are just like, you still got to chew through 20 wounds, even though they don't really have a save. You still gotta. They have to commit to a unit that can kill things, because most units just can't even do that many wounds in a round. Even if they're like, I have no armor save, you still have to roll the hit, roll the wound, and then figure out the damage. And so they have to commit. Otherwise, they're like, I'm stuck chewing through this unit of zombies for forever. Also, zombies are nasty in that they can pile in when they're not in combat.
Yeah.
So they're like, all you do is you wait till in the combat till everybody else is gone, and they're not in combat, so the opponent can't choose to fight them. And then after everything else is gone, you're like, okay, now I pile in with zombies because you had no choice.
It's a 6-inch pile-in or something like
Yes.
that, right? Yeah.
So they can pile in from outside of range. So you typically don't engage.
That's awesome.
You don't engage with them. You just leave them just outside of 3 inches.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, okay.
Oh.
Yeah. So what I painted 9 less models than you. And in fact, I only painted a half a model.
Yeah, I think 9.5 was models.
I painted a magic card.
This is so cool.
I decided I wanted to do like a pop-up book because they had these new Magic the Gathering commander decks, 40K commander decks, and I bought them because I just thought they were cool and I want to check them out. And I had this idea that I was like, what if it was like a pop-up book where it's like the model is coming out of the card? And so I decided I wanted to do that, and I looked through all the cards to try to find something where the art, I could have it coming out in 3 dimensions. And it was a lot more difficult than I thought it was going to be because you have to basically kit bash parts of the model, cut it all up, so it's looking the way you want it to look in the pose that's on the card. And also the card, like the size of the feature on the card has to be roughly the same size as a Space Marine model is, right? Because oftentimes, like on the art, they're really tiny, or it's like all zoomed in, they're really big.
Yeah, I can even tell this one is maybe a little bit too big.
Yeah, it's not perfect, but it's the closest I could find.
Right, yeah.
To scale.
I wouldn't have thought about that challenge, right? Because like you can't just like make a Space Marine bigger. It's like,
Right.
It is what it is.
There's an easier, after I was halfway through doing this and was having a hell of a time constructing this, the part that I realized would have been the easier mode was basically use the artwork as like a backdrop. Like it could be like an atmospheric thing, or there's a battle going on in the background, and then just have a guy jumping out of the card
That's cool.
isn't already on the art. I took something that was already on the art and I made that thing 3D.
And that's cooler. This is way cooler.
Yeah, it's
you can see his
cooler.
backpack.
Yes, I kept some things that I didn't put on there
Yes.
so you could add the dimension.
This is cooler. And also you shaped on his head so it sits lower in there, like behind his chest a little bit.
Yeah. The hardest part is to get the angle correct from the art. So like the shoulder pads are at the correct angle, so they're slightly turned up, or the actual torso is fading away into the card. So how you're cutting the model, and you really only have about one shot at it.
Right, yeah.
And it's not done perfectly, and I learned as I went, and I had to shave back more and stuff. But it was such a fun thing. And in the after party, I want to talk about the painting of that because I had some really cool moments of dealing with the painting in relation to the art and the color scheme and the ambiance of the card itself. And it was like,
Trying to match those tones.
yeah, well, color matching was a part of it, but there's some other stuff too I'm going to talk about. So we'll talk about that in the after party, which is an extended segment of the podcast, which is an extra 20, 30 minutes length that our patrons get access to. So if you want to support the podcast, if you like listening to us and you want to give us a couple of shekels a month, you get that extra episode.
I have a couple comments.
Yeah.
First of all, if you put that in some sick case, some collector would pay mucho bucks for that.
You think so?
Absolutely. That is fucking sick. And here's why I know. I painted custom keycaps for the keyboard community, and they went crazy for them. And I didn't even paint them well because they're not used to artistry, I guess. And so I bet, while this has happened a couple times in the past, not with 40K stuff, and that is great execution. Put it in a case, make it seem fancy, and it's it was painted well. Like they'd be like, "Holy shit, that's fucking awesome!" Like you could sell that, I think, if you wanted to, for like, I don't know, $200,
Cool.
maybe even more.
Cool.
I actually have no idea. Maybe even more.
I thought that I was going to put it in like a shadow box.
Yeah.
So it's like in the back of a shadow box. So there's depth from the shadow box and then it's coming out too. So
Yeah.
I think something like those display really well.
Oh,
too,
absolutely. Yeah.
Which is a cool part of it.
Yeah. And then 2, I love this, like, for you, because like this is like Magic the Gathering and 40K put together in a thing.
Yeah.
Like, mini painting in a thing.
Yeah.
It's like it's all coming together, and I personally love doing that. And that just seems like a great combination of interests.
And that was kind of my storyline behind it. So by now, by the time this episode of the podcast is out, the video on this process will be out, so you can check out the video. But that's kind of the origin of it, is like taking two things that I really like, because Magic is truly my entry into the nerd sphere as a kid. Like, that was the first thing I did. Maybe second to starting to read fantasy books, like reading Lord of the Rings and then reading Dragonlance novels was my foray into that. And then Magic in the 5th grade. I started playing Magic in the 5th grade. So it's just kind of like an homage to a thing that is like the foundation to my nerddom, and then the connection of 40K combining with Magic is like, well, how do I get to both of the things I like together? And this kind of just came up. And obviously there's a level of inspiration to it. I didn't think about it at the time, but I certainly want to pay homage to the work that Roman Lapat is doing with his Shadowbox 40K stuff.
Oh, yeah. Okay. It's similar to that. You're right.
Where it's like blending the 2D and the 3D together to create a scene. And so not knowing exactly how he does it, I now, having gone through this, I can envision that, and kind of gets me excited to do something like that even.
It's a great way to kind of dip your toes into that idea, right?
It is very much more on the traditional artsy side of the hobby.
Yeah.
You know, because you are taking a lot of things that like are more traditional art, and kind of combining them with the miniature sculpture. So it's really cool stuff. But yeah, I'm happy with how it turned out.
Awesome.
I will tell you this though. When I had the whole thing cut up, and then I would like poster tack it to the card to see if the positions were right and everything, I was like, this is going to look terrible. It looks so much worse not painted.
Wow.
Also, you have one shot at super gluing each individual piece, because none of the pieces are actually connected. It's not like I built the model and cut it in half.
Right.
Each part of that is not connected to the other parts.
Yeah.
So you have one shot at super gluing the piece and putting it on the card correctly, because you can't even like move it around. You know, like sometimes when you glue stuff together and then you're kind of like, while it's still curing, you basically have some wiggle room to try to get it right where you want it.
That cardboard absorbs that glue, baby.
Instantly. So his head is not exactly positioned how I want it positioned.
No, it looks fine.
Like, look, the angle of the top of the head is correct, and that's what I was basing it on. Look,
it's a little off center.
Look where the neck meets the armor.
Don't tell anyone.
Yeah.
Except for everyone who listens to our podcast.
Now you see it.
Yeah, it's a little bit off.
But I was like,
the Nurgle head.
that's green stuffed.
What is?
That is a Space Marine head that I green stuffed the horn and the little boobos on it.
You fucking fooled me.
Yeah.
I thought that was a Nurgle head that you tossed on there as like a kit bash.
Because in the art, Nurgle heads are too small. That's the problem. But in the art, like the card's name is Nurgle Rot. So these Space Marines are being affected with the rot, and that guy, like, it's turning like bright, like irate red, where this little horn is starting to pop out of his skin. And so I'm like, I have to take a Space Marine head, and
what a way to go.
Stuff that.
What a way to go for the chosen Astartes.
Yeah. Get wrecked.
Yeah.
By some virus.
Fucking losers.
Did you even get your flu shot, bro?
Did you even get boosted, bro?
So that's what we painted in the last fortnight.
Broken Anvil is the sponsor of this portion of today's episode, and if you've had your eye on their products, I have some good news for you. Broken Anvil just launched a brand new shop chock full of all kinds of different miniatures for your hobby and gaming needs. From their half-orc wizard to their vicious witch of the Eastlands, Broken Anvil's web store has you covered. If there's one company in the industry that I want to see succeed, it is absolutely them. From being an amazing sponsor to work with, to treating their employees right, to making great products, Broken Anvil just does it all. John and I got the chance to meet them, and it was a great experience. For the next 14 days, listeners of the podcast will also get 35% off anything in their web store with a coupon code 35OFF-TUPFAM, which is also down in the show notes below, along with a link to the web store to go and check it out. Shout out to Broken Anvil for sponsoring this portion of today's episode. Now, on to the main topic.
All right. The topic today is brought to us by our good buddy Stu. Stu, great Goody PP member. I think he is one of the flag bearers, one of the traditional, original, OG patrons of the podcast. So thank you, Stu. Stu, his suggested topic title is Getting Good Actually Bad? So the kind of synopsis of Stu's predicament he's found himself in lately is that he's been in this painting slump over the last number of months. And the way I interpret it based on his text there was like, he's to a point where he recognizes the difference between kind of introductory level beginner miniature painting and high level miniature painting. So he recognizes where he wants to go, but he's struggling in that highest level execution. So he feels worse than he did when he was just oblivious.
This is classic.
Classic Stu.
Classic Stu. But also a classic thing, I think, for many walks of life.
Yes.
Right. I think this is akin to the, as a 20-year-old, I thought I was a genius. As a 30-year-old, I think I'm a dumbass. But presumably, we are both wiser and smarter, these past 10 years.
I think I can like make that connection back to basically when I met my wife, because she let me know slowly over the years how dumb I really am.
Yeah.
Not that she has like berated me and put me down. It just kind of like I realized it on my own.
Yeah.
And she kind of like just would like lob them over the plate, and I would just be like, oh, God damn it, I am stupid.
Yeah, it's just like the more you know, the more you realize how little you know. That's kind of what it comes down to, right?
Yes. So when it comes to miniature painting, and Stu's got some other talking points that we want to make sure we hit, because he's got some good stuff I want to dig into here. But when you're starting anything, and miniature painting is a great example, you're just happy to be here, right? You do a thing, oh my gosh, this thing was gray, now it's got paint on it, and I had fun. And I have a thing at the end. It's part of this creation process. Anything you create, whether it's a cabinet or whether it's a miniature or whether it's fixing the plumbing in your house, you've done a thing, a physical job, and you can look at the thing and say, that thing is now fixed. That thing now exists when before it didn't. That thing used to be lumber, and now it's where I put my toilet paper next to my toilet. Whatever it is, you've created a thing, and that creates these hormones. There's release of hormones in our bodies that is the satisfactory thing, this creation thing, which is kind of innate to like how humans have evolved over time, because you needed to create in order to survive or thrive. You know, when you're living in a cave and, there's saber-toothed tigers out there in the nighttime, and that's why we're scared of the dark as humans, is because in the nighttime is where the scary things that will eat you are. And so you're like, I have to create door for cave. I have door. I have created.
I always love your evolutionary throwback.
It's truthful. So you painting minis is basically the same thing is keeping your tribe safe from saber-toothed tigers.
I mean, yeah, maybe. I can't dispute it because it sounds right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I honestly, you mentioned something how when you are just getting started, you're happy to be here. And I don't want to derail us too much, but I really feel for the people that actually get into mini painting through watching videos on YouTube. Because I can definitely see a kind of person who would like set bad expectations for themselves before even starting. Yeah. And then just like get to that negative place like way sooner than like someone who's just kind of just like having fun. And like you said, there for the ride. Like probably both of us were when we first started painting minis. Like, what the fuck is the internet? Like, I don't really know. I'm just gonna paint this skeleton and have fun. And now I wish that for everybody, for their first however many models before they want to like really kind of get good, air quotes. Kind of feels bad to just start out in that negative headspace.
Yeah, the get good kind of fuel is often going to make you stumble. But you need to go through that stumbling at some point to get to those next level ups.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that at the beginning, first of all, if you don't have those dopamine hits and you don't have that feel good process without comparing yourself.
Oh my gosh, yeah. That's a great point.
You want to be able to fall back on that. And let's say you're in a point where you're like, gosh, I don't even know if I ever really had that, or like it's been a long time since I felt that. the recommendation I have, and I have to do this with myself too, even when it's for painting for a video. And a recent one that I did that I felt that way was I tried to replicate the Craft World Studio style for the Leagues of Votan guy. I set my expectations for myself super low. It was all about me just having fun and not knowing how they do a thing, but just like trying it out and see how it goes. And I ended up having so much more fun with that model because I didn't tell myself, this is as good as I paint now. I have to paint at least this good for this model, right? You like, well, this is my low bar now as I've gotten better. And so I like put pressure on myself to paint at a minimum, hit that bar. Just throw those bars out and just say like, here's a skeleton. I don't care about anything. I'm not going to think about what the steps are that I need to take for this to turn out well.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm just going to sit down and have fun and mentally check out. And guess what? At the end, it's going to look way better than a skeleton you would have painted a year ago or 2 years ago.
And then you will know what that feeling is of completion. And that will encourage you to want to paint more stuff. If you don't have that feeling, you don't really know what you're, I guess, missing out on. Yeah, that's great advice.
Yeah.
Just paint more minis. The gray.
I think a thing that what I envision, because I've seen Stu's paint works, and Stu is good. Stu is a very good painter. And so what I think like Stu is doing, first of all, he's probably getting models that are like really nice models, like display models, 54, 72 mils. And then before you even started, you have like this like expectation of making this look as good as the box art, or make sure I do the model justice. And sometimes that can really get you stuck. I bought this model. I paid $50 for it. It was something that I really, really love the sculpt. And so before you even pick up your brush, like there's this weight on your shoulders. That's why I like to like have models that I don't love, but there's something cool about them or something interesting or it's something different than I'd usually paint. Because it's easier for me to separate must be great from just have fun.
Okay.
Have you ever done anything like that where it's like, I wouldn't have painted this model before, or given my own like the usual things I like, but because of that, like it just was a more fun experience?
Not really. I think typically when I paint something, it's a subject matter that I'm typically always interested in. I've even got to the point where I don't take sponsorships where it's not a model that I would have painted in my free time. Like, so I ended up doing like 1 or 2 of those a year, because I just am so precious about like what I paint is going to be what I want to paint and not like what I'm paid to paint. But that's kind of unrelated to what you're saying. But to answer your question, I don't think very often I'm doing that. It's not necessarily something you dislike the model, but maybe it wouldn't be in your usual wheelhouse. For you, I was thinking like the Nico Galaxy chef guy. Like, the Mindwork Games chef guy?
Mindwork Games, yes. Mindwork Games chef guy. Like, that doesn't, if I were to see that on the shelf and I'd be like, I'm searching for a Christmas present for Scott, I probably wouldn't get that model for you for a Christmas present. It doesn't scream Scott to me.
That's fair.
But it's a really cool and interesting model, but it's like a sidestep away of like my usual highway that I travel for what I like to paint.
Yeah.
And because of that, like I felt like I could see that even in your video of painting him. It was like messing with the stuff with the goo on the tentacle, dealing with the weird colors of stuff on the tentacle, figuring out like the stains on his shirt and stuff. Like it didn't feel like a lot of pressure stuff. It was having fun with it. And of course he's going to have mustard stain. How do I do mustard stain? Like there was just some fun parts of it that it didn't feel that pressure. And maybe that was just done in the editing room. I don't know.
No, I mean, I think maybe a certain amount of that is happening subconsciously. When Mindwork Games approached me, I was interested in doing that model because I have a little bit of an interest in like cooking and culinary world.
Yep.
And so again, I like to combine interests. I thought I would be like, yeah, let's do it. But definitely on the Doctor, that was more of a thing because I was like, I painted the Doctor, the second bust, because I had so much fun painting the chef the first time around. Mm-hmm. And even though I'm not like super into like the subject matter of like whatever healthcare or stuff, I still painted that model. And then this did happen where I had fun painting yellow eyes, green hair. In this world, hospital colors are green and yellow and not red and white. And I just doing all these weird things I would have done ever. Yeah. So now that I'm thinking about this, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think that's part of it is kind of shaking free from the groove that you've gotten yourself into, which naturally will happen the longer you've painted and the more your skill naturally increases. Is you'll get in a groove. It's like, I paint a ton of Space Marines, and over the last 2 years, I've gotten pretty good at how to do those volumes or whatever it is. And so if you do something else, you kind of can trick your brain into thinking like, well, this isn't a Space Marine, so I don't need to have it all figured out. I don't need to know it all. I'm just going to go into the process a little bit different and set my own expectations of myself lower. And that doesn't mean like you're not going to get better by doing that. In fact, by painting things of a different variety, you end up having some aha moments of like foundational things that transcend the type of model you're painting.
Okay, so it's like because you have this new sandbox to play in, it gives you an opportunity to explore things you otherwise wouldn't, learn things you otherwise wouldn't, and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could honestly, that's a great observation. I totally agree.
Yeah, like how I paint those big cylindrical thigh plates and you know, wrist plates and stuff of a Space Marine is actually not that much different than how I paint a flesh forearm of a person.
Yeah,
it's still the same basic shape. Mm-hmm. And so to get over like, I don't know how to do this, I don't know how to do this. You don't know how to do it. That's fine. Who cares? Just as you go, you'll realize it's like, oh, it's not that much different.
Yeah.
And then you got
your army, no pressure, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. I think another thing I want to talk about before we get into Stu's talking points is that like the more, at least this happened to me, like when I started to get good at display painting, you sometimes run into like the rules and like kind of a gatekeepy attitude about display painting models. And it's like, these are the things that one must do to have a model at the end that looks good. And one of those things I can think about is like, you know, people always talk about spending 100 hours on painting a model or shit like that, or NMM or whatever they are. They're like the milestones or the hallmarks of a good mini painter. And like, you'll even run into people at cons and stuff that you can just tell are like, it's weird to say this, but like display painter groupies. You've ever like seen this where it's like they just like kind of like worship the ground that like really great painters walk on in a way, not like literally, but it's kind of like they're definitely like there for the prestige and like they like have everything figured out textbook wise. Maybe they're great painters as well. I'm not referring to them being bad or anything, but like the better I got, the more I became like that person. And it was like I was definitely like a kind of a groupie person. I was like, okay, this is what a good model should look like. And then I think the further you get down that train, the more you realize that you bounce back. The pendulum swings back, and it's like, actually, I'm just doing this for fun. That's how I'm gonna do whatever the fuck I want. That's where I'm at now. I'm kind of like, I'm past that point. I'll just paint whatever for fun now.
Yeah, I think I've heard this quote, and it wasn't about miniature painting, but I think it 100% applies. What you're looking to do is you're looking to learn what all the rules are, so you know how to bend and break them. Yeah. And so oftentimes when we hit roadblocks, and the kind of a major roadblock is that part of really understanding the rules technically. You understand the science of things quite well. You've done a fair amount of research and maybe you've joined some Patreons and watched Sergio Calvo's painting process, or you watched a bunch of YouTube videos. You've analyzed, you follow them all on Instagram and you analyze each of their amazing new works and you try to figure out how David Colwell does the things he does that seem like magic. So you've gotten the technical stuff down and your brain is just like overloaded with all this data set. But the data set isn't actually what makes their final pieces amazing. It's not the technical stuff. It's understanding that, but then it's like, how do I improvise in the moment? And how do I go about my process? Because each model is different and no two will go through any specific sets to get them done. Mm-hmm. So how do you find out, where do you break? Where do you bend? Where do you say the core of why Sergio does it this way is because it's going to really end up with a finalized stylistic piece that really highlights the shininess of the armor and still shows the atmospheric stuff. But it's not about this. He did this step and this step and this step to achieve that.
Yeah.
And that is, in my opinion, the hardest part of getting better at miniature painting is committing so much to figuring out the science to then actively throwing it out the window.
Knowing when that it isn't valuable. Like in the recent video I came out with, I mentioned how reference photos aren't the holy grail of like how you should highlight and paint a model, right? And also like when you choose to break and bend the rules is really kind of a component of your personal style, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like you showed me that awesome Leagues of Votan model where I think the shadow color you used on the boots in certain areas wasn't actually darker than that part of the model. Yeah. And that just looked sick and that made no sense, but it didn't matter. And that got me thinking, I was like, what if I did an oil wash on silver armor with like red bright ass paint? Yeah. And it had like a red line running through the recesses. Like, what would that look like? You know, because like, you know, who cares? So yeah, just like that.
I did that one time. This was one of my earlier videos where I painted up the Creature Caster game Judgment, and I did oil washes and stuff, and I did like an oil wash of magenta, like magenta, like bright ass magenta as the oil wash over the skin. Mm-hmm. And it was like, whoa, it looked so good. And I was like, this isn't even darker than the darker acrylics I have on here. But it added a depth of color, and your human eye is like, that's showing the warmth, and that's showing that there's blood underneath the skin, and it doesn't need to make 100% sense with how light works for it to work.
No, yeah. Really cool, baby.
Yeah, and that's just it. That's not a rule. That's not a step we take, and that's not following somebody's step-by-step. And in relation to this, this is where I think we get ourselves caught up. You need to understand that the way you're taught a thing, specifically something that requires a lot of visual input in order to learn, it needs to be done in a way that makes categorical sense. So when we're making a YouTube video, or someone is making a PDF step-by-step breakdown of how they painted a thing, or they're just walking you through it on a Patreon, they need to find some logical order of things in order for you to maximize understanding the process. The problem with that is that's not typically how the process even works. Right? We have to make it consumable in something for people to absorb, but that gives you the indication to the viewer that these steps were all planned out, and these steps are the order that things must be done in. And even if the author or the artist doesn't ever say that, and usually they don't, we kind of infer that the order is a certain way because that's the way it is done correctly to get the outcome you want.
Yeah.
When in reality, I'm constantly painting something and getting my own visual real-time feedback on that thing to determine what I want to do next, what needs fixing, what do I not exactly like, where that's going, what wasn't pushed far enough, what was pushed too far, how is this color not working with the other colors, how is this color now influence my color choice for the next color. Like, there's all these back and forth. It's not linear at all, but the result of the medium with a fixed timeline on a video, or a fixed timeline in how we read left to right, page to page, that seems like it's on a straight line.
Yeah.
And that's not how it works. But it has to be how we tell it to you. Otherwise, it would be complete chaos and you wouldn't learn anything.
Yeah. I would say that process is definitely much more intrinsic to display painting than it is to batch painting a unit. Because, like, there is experimentation that happens. Well, at least, not for maybe everyone, but at least for me there is. But then once you have it figured out, then it is like a thing where it's like, I've done the work. This is what I think it works for me in terms of efficiency and outcome. Here is the process. But I think the majority of videos where people are painting stuff that isn't the case. I know Sarastro at some point painted test models of his things before making the video, which is just like fucking absolute Chad. Who the fuck does that? Not me. But he might have. I know he did at some point. I don't know if he still does. But yeah, so he does that. So that makes sense for his process. But most people probably don't do that. And then yeah, we kind of display it as if it is a thing that is solved or figured out, which that's not really true to mini painting, especially display painting.
Yeah, I think like doing an entire army, doing a speed paint, doing a unit to look as good as you can without taking days and days to do it. All of those things require specific steps. But whether it was doing a test model or whether it's drawing on your years of experience and having done this before or having done commission paints or having done multiple armies before, you're drawing on all of that testing and retesting and fine-tuning your process. So when you get to painting the army or speed painting the certain way, you've done all of that testing and back and forth and evolving, and now you're just cranking it out. And the problem is so much of the kinds of videos, the kinds of painting styles, the standard GW paint videos are just showing you what the final steps are. They aren't walking through how you got to making that decision. It's back to I've said it 100 times, it's the giving you a fish instead of teaching you to fish.
Yeah.
And
that problem solving. Painting is all about problem solving, like real time. And it's like if they don't teach you that, then you just end up painting in the way that they paint with their paints, with their process. Because it's like, I don't know how to deviate from this, right?
Right. And that's okay as well. Like there are tons of painters
absolutely
that are, I want to know how to paint my Leagues of Votan with this army color scheme that's in the book. What colors do I use? How do I make it look as best as possible for 45 minutes per model, and so on and so forth, so I can have an army I'm proud of at the table and all that. That is absolutely a valuable thing. And by doing that, you'll get better at your execution. I think what Stu is struggling with is not the copy-paste execution so much as it is I see it all, I know how it should be done, but when I sit down to do it, there's a gap there.
Yeah.
There's a gap. So Stu, what you actually do is you actually know too much. So you need to get concussed and make your brain a little foggy, and then you won't remember any of this stuff.
Play some rugby.
Yeah. And then
I use helmets because they're fucking psychopaths.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I would say play American football, not American football, soccer, or just football. But all of their injuries are faked anyway, so that wouldn't count.
Scathing.
That wouldn't count. But yes, they do mixed martial arts in England. They got the Paddy over there, Paddy the Baddie. So you could knock on Paddy's door and call him a tripe sucker or something and have him bonk you in the head.
There you go. That's definitely the easiest way to get concussed.
Yes.
Should we crack out one of his talking points to spice the life up?
He wrote a novel here, so let me read. Okay. We talked about, and maybe there's more here. I'll bring up the first point. It's called The Twilight Zone. He says, I found myself in a weird no man's land where I struggled to do tabletop stuff to a standard I'm happy with. Yet, I get pissed off with not being able to Michael Posarski my way into doing display stuff. Go figure.
So he's unhappy with not only his tabletop stuff, but also just getting results that fall short of the greatest painter in the world.
Yes.
You probably shouldn't compare yourself to one of the greatest painters in the world.
Yeah.
That's just folly, right?
I think,
but I get it, obviously.
I think the Michael Posarski comparison is tying back to the thing we talked about before, is like he's probably watched how Michael Posarski does stuff. We've taken a class from him.
Yeah.
We found out how he does NMM.
Yeah.
And I still can't do it. And granted, I haven't spent hours and hours and hours trying to replicate it because I value my sanity, but his process is very laborious. That's what I'm getting at.
I mean, that was also 4 years ago, and he has definitely gotten better over the time.
Yes. But so I think part of that is like you've done the research stuff. It doesn't look like Michael Pisarski's. It's not going to. You want to hit the fast forward button where you've spent hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours. So then you are there. So your brain matches what your hand can output.
Yeah. It just takes work. It just takes time, man. Yeah.
Getting from level 1 to like level 7, depending on how much time you put in, is not take nearly as long as it gets from level 7 to level 9.
Yeah.
Like those next 2 levels, there's like a huge steep jump.
Look at how many display models Michael Pisarski has painted. Like, just go to his Instagram. It's just like he's popping out like one a week for like the last like fucking 4 years or something. Like, not one a week, maybe like one every 2 to 3 weeks. But it's like it is consistent, and like he's doing competition entries too. Like it doesn't post the whips online, so like he is putting hours and hours behind that brush. And like even before that, he's been painting. I think his first 75mm model was a Barbarian model from Black Sun Miniature. You might even remember it. That's the one holding the axe. The one holding the axe, like every other fucking one on their site. Anyways,
with the helmet and the bare chest.
Yeah, actually, I don't think that one has a helmet, but he has a helmet variant. But yeah, so even before that point, man was painting 32mm models like to an amazing result, winning Golden Demons for years. So yeah, hard to compare yourself to that.
Yeah. I think my takeaway for Stu and others in this boat is because I actually think I'm probably in the same point where Stu is on my journey, and I think that as long as you make time in any given week to put in the hours to try to improve at your high level painting, that's all you can ask of yourself, because you're to a point where you just need more reps.
Yep.
And those reps will evolve your own style and will let each of those kind of technical aspects slowly improve over time.
Yeah.
Now talk about the tabletop level stuff. He said he's just not happy with the tabletop stuff.
And this is where I'm at in my journey.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out, because like I'm not a fast painter. I don't really have painted armies, and so I'm trying to figure out what level of quality am I happy with. And so I've been experimenting with that novitiate kill team I just did, and then this squad of 10 skeletons right here. And without realizing that I'm doing it, I am trying to figure out like what I can do for tabletop standard that I'm happy with. And it's a lot of experimentation. I've done a lot of writing down. I like write down like how long certain steps take so that I can compare them to see, is this worth it for the time invested? So, I mean, like I don't do that all the time, but I do it a couple times just to see. Because like so obviously certain things are going to look way better than other steps, but if it takes 4 times as long, it's not worth it for a skeleton. So I don't know. I think, again, maybe it's just more reps. And also, you don't have to attack it in the way that I do. You don't have to take notes and stuff, but that was helpful for me and might be helpful for others. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think one thing I agree with that. I think that setting your mindset before you sit down and just do something for fun for tabletop is very important, because otherwise, if you're usually painting for getting better at your highest level, when you sit down in your chair, like your brain reverts to that mindset. And so you're not going to be happy, because whether or not you're thinking about it that way, the expectations you're setting of yourself are related to painting to display level. And that's not what I'm doing today. So I need to actively sit down and say, okay, my goal is to just do 4 layers of paint on any surface, no more, maybe less, but no more. That way I'm limiting myself to nitpicking a thing, to really digging down and do more glazes and then stippling more and stippling more. And suddenly your brain is going into competition level instead of just like sitting down and giving yourself some restrictions to make it be your current level of tabletop. What I've found with that too is that actually how I walk away from that feeling better is realizing that I'm better with what I can achieve with one layer of highlight than I could a year ago. I feel like I've gotten better at knowing what consistency of paint, where to apply, brush pressure, brush control, all those things that I've been, just because I paint more often, has made me better. It's actually made me better at tabletop quality too. And if you realize those small victories, you'll be like, oh, I don't need for this thing to be a grand work of art for me to still see the improvement and see how I've gotten better with the same or less amount of time.
Yeah. I have 2 comments about that. I kind of get caught in these 2 worlds where it's like, for tabletop painting, it's like, I feel like sometimes we stress a little bit too much, and I'm definitely not helping with what I'm talking about in this episode, about like trying to figure out the best way to paint the models and like be nice. And try to be super efficient and shit like that, and be like very cognizant of like how much time I'm spending. Like, it's just a 30-minute paint job. Is it a 15? Is it an hour? It's like, you could just sit down and just paint the fucking skeletons. Like, so on these skeletons, I was like, do I airbrush the red? Do I airbrush the metallic? It's like, man, it's a lot of metallic to paint with a paintbrush. I don't want to do that. I'm trying to figure out this hack. Like, how do I airbrush the metallic and the red, but not get metallic like on the bone, which would make it a pain in the ass to paint? And then I think one of my patrons, Irk, was like, what if you just painted the metallic with a paintbrush? And I was like, fine, I'll try. I did that, and I was like, whatever, this isn't a big deal. Like, it took me 15 minutes a model for that one step, and yeah, that's long for one step, but like, who fucking cares, dude? Just do it. Sometimes it's okay.
You know what I call that? I call that the approaching the paint job like it's a YouTube title.
Yeah, no shit. That's great. That's exactly what it is. You don't gotta figure out an angle or a hack. Like, just paint the damn model. Yeah. So there's definitely a little bit of that when it comes to tabletop painting. It's like, you're not gonna figure everything out. Everything isn't gonna be perfect. You have to just settle at some point, and that's okay. Like, you're just painting minis now. Like, welcome to the hobby. And dang, I think the other thing fluttered away from my mind.
From your gray matter.
My gray matter.
All right. We're going to get into this next section here, see how much we've discussed or things we want to discuss more. That next section is about analysis paralysis. A couple of things here. Death by theory, color theory, light direction, highlight placement, volume, secondary reflections, specular highlights, blah, deflucking, blah. My brain hurts. Make it stop. Next, death by technique. Which technique do I use? Should I be using wet blending here, two brush blending, void blending, split blending, cappy base?
Is void blending a fucking thing, or is it a meme? I thought it was a meme. That name is ludicrous. Can we stop? Can that not be a thing? Can we decide right now it's not a thing?
I think we can.
Okay. That's a meme. If you want to be funny, it's a joke.
Next, knowledge is power. Is it really? Am I really going to read that Kirill Kanyov book I splashed out on?
Is that an English term? Splashed
out on?
I'm assuming splurged on.
Stu, I need the transcripts of this.
Yeah, we need the English. We need the American version of this English writing.
So those are kind of his 3 breakdowns of analysis paralysis.
Yeah, and I don't know how deep we want to go on these things because we've definitely talked about them before, but it's like, yeah, obviously knowledge is power, but knowledge is nothing without implementation, right? Without hours behind the brush and doing it. You can collect all the bits of knowledge you want, ain't gonna do shit for your mini painting unless you like actually do it and get good at it over time.
Yeah, I mean, if you were to think you were gonna go back in time and use a time machine and like go visit like Michelangelo or Da Vinci or Picasso or whatever, and they're in the midst of doing the work, and you're like, boop, you teleport right behind them, and you're like, so exactly how did you get this perfect blend on the cheek right there? They look at you and first of all and be like, who the fuck are you? And then they'd be like, who the fuck cares? They're like, why are you bringing this dribble to me?
Yeah.
Like, this is not it. I'm not worried about the technical aspect or the theory of why it is the way it is. It simply is.
It's definitely a mini painting thing.
Yeah.
To like get just stuck in the, what is it, skullduggery? No, the stuck in the dredge of technique.
Mm-hmm. The sand trap. It's the sand trap of life.
Yeah.
Again, you've got the knowledge. You understand how these things are. Now, forget them and let your monkey brain do them without thinking about them. And there's no like practical application that I know of forgetting and doing other than just repeating with doing your best to not worry about where you're doing things. I think the thing that's helped me get over that hump is when I'm doing things while I'm recording for a video, my brain is usually thinking about things of like, okay, what kind of shot do I want to get here? What part do I want to make sure I'm showing on film of this section? Which part of the armor do I want to make sure is going to be in frame the most? It's going to show up on camera the most. So my brain is thinking about other things. And so it's not thinking about, should I be glazing down here? Should I blah, 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 blah. And so it's just kind of like on autopilot. I'm not thinking about those things, even though I'm doing them. That's helped me. Maybe do something like listen to an audiobook or watch a movie or watch a TV series or something that you're actually interested in and you want to be paying attention to what's going on.
Put paint in the backseat.
Yeah. So then the painting is just the technical aspect is happening without you feeling like I need to make a decision on do I wet blend this or not. And like your subconscious brain will have figured that out without you having to worry about it.
That's possibly true. Also, I forgot that thing he mentioned about like wet blending and stuff. Like that's just we've said it in the past too. That's just the wrong way to think about technique. It's not like I did one technique to a part of the model and that was part of the step. That's definitely like the thought process that comes from like those PDF guides. It's like, yes, I'm going to wet blend the cape and here is the technique for wet blending. And maybe that's true for some people. But I know for me and potentially you, it's kind of just like, well, I'm just going to do whatever works, man. And it's kind of like a weird hybrid mishmash of all kinds of different things. And like on certain parts of that cloak, you might be wet blending. On certain parts, you might be feathering. On other parts, you might be void blending. Spirit. Hey. Shout out Dota TI going on right now. You watching any Dota TI?
I've not been, but now I didn't realize it was going on right now.
You don't got to worry about it, unless you care about the the playoffs. But the main enchilada is not this weekend, but the next one. So if you want to watch the big old whatever $1 million prize pool grand finals it is, that's next week.
I like to get some reps in of like getting my brain back in Dota like mindset. If I jump right into like the finals and stuff, I'm not going to be like, I'm not going to be in it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I got you. You got to understand the meta.
Yeah.
The current meta.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Then I appreciate it more.
Yeah. I get that. But yeah, so technique isn't like a put the square peg in the square hole situation. It's more fluid, at least for us. Yeah.
Yeah, and you broke that down, which is very common, and it's a good thing to bring up, Stu, and that is the analysis paralysis. And we saw with your examples there the depth in which it can go. What I found is like sometimes I'm just like really into wet blending, and I just find myself doing it more. And other times I look back, I'm like, did I do wet blending in the last 6 months? I don't remember.
Yeah,
and you'll find like you'll just end up doing something. Lately, I've been doing really a lot more layering.
Same. Yeah.
And like I used to think that just layering was the basic stuff that's what they teach you in GW school because that's the starter point. And then eventually you graduate from that and then you're just doing like live blending on the model and you're doing a lot more glazes and blah, blah, blah. It's like that's not necessarily how it works because I mean, surprise, surprise, Darren Latham is one of the best mini painters alive because he's the fucking master of layering. He's so goddamn good at it. It makes me want to barf in my mouth. Okay. And so when I realized that, and I got to hold some of his pieces in my hand when we were over in England, I'm like,
you touched him?
I touched it with my
mandrels.
With my wiener. And then he wasn't in the room at the time. It's fine. It's fine. Yeah.
You're like, hey, Dad, can you give me a cup of water? It's like, all right. Zip.
Why all my Eldar have mushroom stamps on their foreheads? You just like you realize how relevant any way that you apply paint to model with brush can be. And then so worrying about having to do things a certain way or having to use a certain technique is kind of folly. Instead, what is naturally happening? What seems fun? What seems the least barrier of complexity or stress for you? And that's where the fun's going to come back. And you're going to end up getting really good at doing that technique. And then suddenly that becomes a subconscious thing that just happens. And then you'd be like, oh, I think now actually I might want to do a little bit of feathering here to really boost the vibrancy in the shadows. And then you'll start getting into a groove with that. And before you know it, you'll have a well-rounded resume.
Yeah,
as it were.
I also think that with layering, you have just way more control, like of where that final highlight ends up, how many layers you're using, how much of each layer is represented on the final blend. You know, like with a wet blend, it's kind of like, okay, if you are a fucking master, you'll like nail it. But like even after one or two wet blends, you'll still have to adjust it to get it to look like the right reflectivity or something like that. So with layering, it's much more like easy to see like what you're building to.
Yeah. It's like, okay, go catch Sam Lenz on streaming on Twitch, and you'll see how someone can use acting with live wet paint on a model to create ridiculous things in an obscenely short amount of time.
Yeah.
And see a master at that technique.
Yeah.
Matt. I don't know who Matt is. Matt Lenz, Sam's alter ego. He just makes it look like there's no effort involved, when in reality it's like Sam has painted thousands of hours for probably 15 plus years to get to where he's at.
Just refining this way of his painting, right?
Yeah. And then go watch right after that, go watch a Richard Gray video on YouTube and see what somebody with a little teeny tiny brush that's always working with a thin layer consistency paint can do with a totally different technique, which is the majority of how Richard paints, is mostly one technique. You don't need, he's just so good at it and it's so second nature. It's just like, it's mind blowing to see. They're amazing artists that do things completely differently, and they can both create amazing things. And then it's like, you know what? I don't have to know all the techniques to create something that I'm proud of.
I think that's a lovely bow tie to this conversation. Find what works for you and do that. Maybe there's a bit of a struggle in the beginning as you're experimenting and trying out things and finding things you don't like, but once you kind of settle, then it's like, okay, I can just paint this way now.
Yeah, the path of least resistance for you to get a model painted is the one that's going to make you the happiest, because you didn't build up your stress along the way.
That was the other thing I wanted to say about tabletop painting, is that there's a great dopamine hit when we paint a single display model. It looks great, even when painting a part of a display model, right? But when painting a tabletop model, if you paint a single dude, you're kind of like, meh. Mm-hmm. You paint 10 of them like that, though, it's great. So my advice to you, Stu, is if you are kind of like meh with your paint job, paint the unit and then look at it and then ask, is it meh? It might not be. So you might surprise yourself with the volume of miniatures, how a worser paint job can look a lot better.
You're a worser paint job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
I have to tell you, as we are wrapping up the main topic of this today.
He has to tell you this.
I have to tell you this. Specifically, this is for Stu. I have had so much gas during this main topic. If I had a microphone like 6 inches from my butt this whole episode, you wouldn't hear anything Scott and I would have said.
Butt mic.
It would just be like, "Brrr."
Just a foghorn.
I think the key was last night I wasn't all that hungry, so I just had a chocolate protein shake with vitamins in it for my supper, and that gets me a little gassy. And so like it was all bubble and guts all night, overnight. And this morning I woke up and I was just like, I got out of bed and was like, what? It's just like the air shot me out of bed.
A little jet booster.
And ever since, I'm just like, I'm getting ready for tendies, basically. My stomach's like, we need to evacuate all gaseous forms.
I'm sure that'll help and not just like continue the problem.
Oh, it's going to continue the problem, yeah. Yeah. So thank you, Stu, for offering up your shitty painting and your terrible personality to the podcast for everyone to make fun of you. We appreciate you. We love you, even though your mom doesn't.
Fucking sad. This now has turned into the roast of Stu.
Gosh, Stu, is that a nose or is that a cliff?
All right. Anyways,
Stu, is that your hairline or is that the Sahara Desert?
oh, that one hits a little too close to home for me.
Oh no, I love Stu. I think Stu's a great person, and hopefully Stu kind of ripping open a vein here will help the rest of us as well, because he really is the goody pee-pee martyr here that is sacrificing himself upon the altar of the paint gods. That way we may all improve because of his sacrifice.
Shout out to Saint Stu.
Saint Stu. He was taken from us far too young. Dude, what if Stu dies in a car accident right before this episode comes live? I'll feel terrible about making fun of his nose and his hairline and that his mom doesn't love him.
We'll just edit it out.
Yeah, that
Then effectively it never happened.
yeah. And then we'll just show on the screen right now, R.I.P. Stu, like 1988 to 2022. Oh, shit. I'm going to go to hell if Stu dies before this episode goes live. All right. What do we got next, Scott?
All right. We have an ad next.
Before we get to an exciting advertisement, I wanted to say that Stu was able to...
Jesus Christ, how much shit have we got to say about fucking Stu? Can we move on, please?
Stu was able to provide us with this wonderful topic because he's a member of the Patreon. And part of the Patreon...
Okay, actually, I'm okay with this.
is you get to not only submit your feedback on your paint job, which we know we're falling behind on, patrons. Don't worry, we're going to come up with a strategic way to get all caught up on some of those at least. But we do offer feedback. But also you can supply topics for the show, and we use those often. So if you have a burning desire both in your loins and in the podcast topics, one, it's probably chlamydia, and two, you can just join the Patreon. Joining the Patreon does not result in curing you of STDs.
That was some Bo Burnham level comedy right there. I appreciated that. Also, I think Stu's actually supplied a topic for us to use in the past. So you got bangers. You're going to come up multiple times, and then John's just going to talk about you endlessly in the podcast and either praise or just shit on you ruthlessly.
Yeah, Stu,
or both.
Don't actually die, Stu, because we need this.
He doesn't want to go to hell either.
I'm already
and that's the reason he's going to go to hell. Yeah.
I'm already going to hell. But this is going to be on like the page 7. They're like, and it looks like here you shit on a guy who got hit by a truck.
That's the nail in the coffin. You're fucked.
That's it. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Stu laughs at me as I'm going down the fucking hell chute. Yeah, I'm still talking.
Okay. John, do you ever feel like a dirty boy?
Yes, Scott, sometimes I feel like a dirty boy.
Well, I have the product for you. The distributor of Dirty Down products range, Goblin's Hut, has sponsored this portion of today's episode.
Dirty Down is different than Dirty Drawers, but Dirty Down hobby products are new to the scene, and they are taking this hobby world by storm, if you hadn't heard.
In the line, you'll find a rust, moss, and verdigris product truly unlike any other product on the market.
Very often, products across this market will just promise ease of use and amazing results, but rarely is that ever the actual case. But with Dirty Down, honestly, this stuff is magic in a bottle.
I've been using the moss product a lot on my recent basing projects, and what I love about it is how it's water soluble, so I can get a wide variety of effects by applying a couple of thin layers. You can also reactivate it with water to manipulate it with even more effects like streaks after the fact.
The thing that I really like about the Dirty Down products is that they're both great for like speed painting and batch painting your armies, but I also use them on like competition pieces. I've used the Dirty Down Rust on my Golden Demon piece. The Dark Eldar piece has Dirty Down Rust on it. On my Conrad Cruise that was supposed to be at Warhammer World for a big event, I use the moss all over the place there because I can control it because it's water soluble, so I can kind of feather it out and remove it and get it just the way I want, or I can just slap it on my stuff for an army and it's done in minutes.
I use the Dirty Down rust on my table topper for A Song of Ice and Fire for all those little pools of water. I had like an octopus in there, made it all rusty, an anchor, made it all rusty. It works great. It's just so easy to use. Dirty Down liquid effects and aging sprays have been used in TV and film for over 30 years to create incredible, realistic-looking results in fast, reliable ways. It can be found in many of your favorite forms of media: Star Wars, Game of Thrones, Harry Potter, James Bond, and Pirates of the Caribbean, just to name a few.
Dirty Down's full range of aging sprays have finally made it across the pond as well and will be available in early November.
If you're in North America and want to buy Dirty Down at a shop near you, ask your friendly local game store to go to goblinshut.com to stock it. You can also purchase it there as well. Use code TUP10 to get 10% off.
A big thank you to Goblin's Hut for sponsoring this portion of today's episode. You can find a link to their web store down in the show notes and in the video description below, and you can start getting dirty like we do. Now let's get on to the newsy news. I'm just a teenage dirtbag baby.
And with that, we're on to the news. A little bit of a sad news item actually up first here. Kathy Wapple, of Wapple fame, if you're familiar with the Fort Wapple at Adepticon.
As well as ReaperCon.
Oh, and ReaperCon. Kathy Wapple has contracted cancer. I don't know if it's like an early form or if it's like whole hog right now. It doesn't really matter. And Dark Sword Miniatures has made a tribute model for her, which portion of the proceeds go toward her recovery, her healing. So if you know Kathy and want to support her in that journey, in that process, consider picking up one of those models. There might be other ways to support Kathy in that process as well that I'm not familiar with, but I was just appreciative that we saw something like this in the community. It kind of reminds me of that airbrush that Harder and Steam Mech is doing to donate to Ukraine. This is more of an individual's personal struggle, not an entire country. But I love it when companies do this.
Yeah, and first of all, the model is great. It freaking looks like Kathy.
It does, yeah.
It's so good. And I think they had Jen Haley do the box art.
Yeah,
and of course, Jen makes it look masterful. They've also had shirts for sale. I think I heard they're going to do another run of shirts that the proceeds will go to support Kathy, as well as you can check out her husband, James Wapple, on Twitch, and you could always support there, either give a donation or subscribe to James on Twitch, because obviously, as they're both full-time artists and we live in the shithole that is United States of America, where you just, if you are self-employed, it's hard to get good health insurance. So any money that they can raise for her treatment would be greatly appreciated. I heard that she is actively going through treatment right now, and she's a soldier and she's doing well. So that was my last update I heard. So Kathy, keep strong. We're here with you.
Awesome. Next on the old list here of news, I am stalling because I had to open the link. Warhammer Fest to return to the UK in 2023 with a 10K capacity venue. GW heard the community's criticisms, took it in stride, and made an improvement. Shout out to them. That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's going to be a bunch of massive tournaments for their games going on there, which is cool. You actually have a space to do the big tournaments, is awesome. And Golden Demon's going to be there. And I was like, oh, sweet, yeah, okay, so that's next year's Golden Demon. And then my brain started doing the math on the dates. This is coming up soon.
April.
Like,
we can't go to, I'm not going to go to this.
Yeah, it's like...
It's right like a month after Adepticon.
Yeah, so if you think about it that way, like... The people, like, everyone blew their fucking Golden Demon load in the UK just this last month.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see what people can pull off in that shorter turnaround time.
Yeah.
So it's either going to be...
I anticipate people are going to be like, this is the best one we've ever had.
Yeah, it's going to be the most hours per day I spent to paint the... Bro, can you paint 1,000 hours between now and the end of April?
Yeah, bro. Fucking put it in, bro.
Put it in.
I don't know what the fuck that means.
I think this goes back to the tentacles earlier.
I am judging a painting competition on Insta? ? Writes our writer, James. Yes, I am.
I wrote that. I saw a fucking advertisement for it on the Instagram. So I'm like, it was more of a question because you never told me about this.
Yeah, so Silva is running a competition on Instagram called Simp, which is just fucking perfect. It stands for Silva's Instagram mini painting something. can't remember what the P is. But yeah, me and Squidmar and a couple other display painters are going to judge that competition. There are several categories for it. I believe bust is one. I believe single figure is one. There's probably another one that I can't remember. But if you want to check it out and get involved in that online competition, we'll have a link to it in the description. And yeah, that's Silva's Instagram.
I was not asked to judge.
Get fucking
so it's probably not that cool of a competition. Next one. GW announces Armies on Parade 2022, a competition for complete armies and field of battle. Right, Goblin James wrote this, and it's just kind of like the Cliff Notes, and I was reading it like it was a real sentence.
Yeah.
I don't know what the fuck this is. What is this, Scott?
Armies on Parade is a thing that GW has always done, where it's like a little painting competition for fully painted armies with display boards, and like the winners make it into White Dwarf and stuff like that.
So you can enter either online or go to your local store to
yes. Okay. I remember seeing that at my locals, where people bringing in their display boards with their armies to get like the entry in for Armies on Parade. That's super cool.
So they had the full like boards out in like at the store.
They're not like 6x4 tables, but like like a display board that you would see at Adepticon. People carry their armies around with them. Yeah, stuff like that. But yeah, they'd have them out for the people to take pictures of, for the employees to send in to corporate.
I would like to bring my cat to one of those stores and then just have him walk over the tables like he was Godzilla. And I'd be like, oh no, Dobby is attacking.
Yeah, you would be like hung, drawn, and quartered for doing that.
Yeah, I'm in it for the joke. Okay. So
WizKids announces limited run of a giant space hamster paint kit. And it's super adorable. And that is all we'll say about that.
Giant space hamster. We need more miniature rodents in our lives, and this really checks that box.
Okay.
Let's see here. Okay. So Games Workshop recently previewed that they're coming out with what are those guys called? Astra Militarum. Just dudes, human dudes.
Yeah.
They're like redoing the line.
Name. Are they? I mean, I don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, I think it's probably going to be some kind of redo. But then they showed these things called the Rough Riders. Okay. You lost me big time on this. This is probably in the lore, and that makes it 0% less stupid. But it's human dudes riding horses into battle versus thousands of orcs, space aliens, and space marines and chaos demons. And they're a dude on the horse, and he's got a spear, but instead of it being a spear tip, it's a spear tip with a grenade attached to it. So when he spears into it, everybody dies. This horse is like, fuck this shit. How did I get signed up for this garbage time?
I love how that was like 45 seconds of a tirade, and like the longer it went on, like the higher your voice got, it just went higher and higher. That was so good. This is definitely a John thing. Like, you hate it when sci-fi does this.
Yeah, it's like, come on. Like, this is a thing that I think I see black and white like pictures of from World War I trench warfare. There's a guy with a fucking horse going down with a spear, and the other guys too on the other side are like, the fuck is this guy on a horse for? And they shoot him with a goddamn AK. They don't got goddamn plasma rifles. They don't need them. It's a man on a horse without a gun.
Yeah, obviously there's some element of truth to this, but it's fucking cool, man. Their name is Rough Riders.
I know. Was this goddamn Teddy Roosevelt?
They're riding rough. They're fucking suicide bombers, apparently.
Yes, so.
You skipped over a talking point that I'm going to bop back to real quick.
Yeah,
Warcry, Corvus Belli's either skirmish game or dungeon crawling board game. I don't know what it is.
Warcrow.
I'm sorry. Oh yeah, not Warcry. Warcrow. Is now out on Kickstarter. If you were interested in that, it's available now. I know some people we talked about that in the past in terms of like games we played and things like that. And that was another skirmish game that you could look into. And they have great models too. So check them out. Link down below.
I'm going to check it out. I didn't realize that Kickstarter was live right now, but I remember seeing the models that they showed at Gen Con. The models look badass. Danimal the Animal showed me some, and I was like, wow. So yeah, cool. A good thing that there's a podcast that gives news on things like this, so then I can go look at them on the Kickstarter page.
Nice.
Oh, right, me. Dear God, there's so much news here, and none of it.
The Kings of War starter set is pretty cool.
Okay.
It's called Sands of Amun. It's Egyptian-style skeletons versus ogres, which, I'm being a little bit honest, kind of reminds me of, is it Feast of Crows? Or there was a starter set that had ogres and Osiark Bone Reapers in it.
Yes.
Kind of like the Eastern Asian.
I think it's Feast of Bones.
Feast of Bones. Okay, not Feast of Crows. Feast of Crows is definitely something else I can't remember. But this is in the Kings of War world. It's priced at $120. Comes with 2 factions, the rules, all that stuff. It's a really good price. And our writer says these skeletons are so far up my alley that I'm already looking for a local Kings of War group in Vancouver to pawn off the ogres to. Nice.
Wow.
Also, I didn't realize how many games the company that makes Kings of War, Mantic makes. I went to the site to check out the starter set, and then I went to the games category, and there was fucking 12 different products of ranges. Yeah, eye crossing. But yeah, it was kind of weird.
Interesting.
It wasn't weird. It was it was shocking and cool.
It was eye-opening, as they say.
Eye-opening. Anything else worth talking about?
No, I think we hit all the high notes, and we dodged all the mines.
All the stick grenades.
Yeah.
I mean, not stick grenades.
Mines of Moria.
It's a mine.
I started watching the not Game of Thrones, the Middle Earth show on Amazon Prime.
A mine. Yeah, Rings of Power.
Rings of Power. Have you seen that yet?
How much of a boner do you get from young Galadriel just fucking
dripping wet?
murking bitches, dude?
Yeah. Oh, I thought you meant when she was in the ocean and she got out and she's all wet and she's wearing that fucking,
of course, no.
that nightie. And
I mean, I was kind of setting it up for that, but no. Dude, so I only watched 1 episode, but dude, she fucking, all of her company was struggling with this ogre. This is kind of spoilers. And she just walks up and just fucking annihilates this fool. And with ease. I was just like,
she could fucking combos him too.
Dude, yeah, dude, 100% Street Fighter style, dude.
Yeah. She was air juggling and shit.
yeah. And I was just like, I am so behind the idea that young Galadriel is a fucking military master.
Yeah.
I love it.
She is pure 100% badass.
Yeah.
And okay, it's not an ogre. I'm not going to say what it is because I don't want to what we've done is we've unspoilered Scott's potential spoiler.
Right.
So it's not an ogre, but it's a big something. Yeah. Okay. I've only watched 3 episodes, I think. We're not going to spoil anything. But there's a lot of hate going on around this show.
I don't know why. It's whatever.
And I'm 3 episodes in, and I'm fucking in.
Yeah?
I like it.
Nice.
It does not need to be fucking Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy for me to like it. And I like it.
Yeah. I'm definitely on board, too. I think the first episode has a bit too much, elfish, faffery. There's, a lot of, really highfalutin, writing and lines, and it's kind of, a little bit annoying. But that's definitely not enough to turn me away.
What is really nice is because they follow different storylines of different people, and when they go to the hobbits or they go to the dwarves or they go to the men, that's not there. So it's it's cool because it you feel the culture in the writing.
Nice.
And it's I fucking love it. It's great. It's fun. And don't fucking destroy things just because it's not the greatest version of the thing.
Are you Ozzy?
I don't know. I feel like I was a little bit like Ringo Starr there for a moment.
Yeah.
Ringo, that's the news. That's the news.
Welcome to the end of the podcast. Thank you for making it all the way to the end. We appreciate your ears. Your ears are a valuable asset to us. So I want to just take a moment just to massage those ears auditorially.
Yeah, when if you use Q-tips, be careful. Don't stick them too far up there.
We've got some ear advice too.
Yeah, or use a warm, wet washcloth and just kind of gently massage your ears to get that wax out. Don't be sticking things in your ears.
Behind the ears too, the lobes. Give them a little rub for us.
Yeah, because sometimes those are the things that get dirty back there.
Yeah, and while you're doing it, just kind of whisper "tup" over and over again, and then if you click your heels together 4 times, John and I will show up in your shower.
Yeah, and we with a tendy.
Yeah,
and a half a can of Mountain Dew. Sorry, I got thirsty on the teleportal.
on the interdimensional travel.
Yeah.
We're in a fucking phone booth, Bill and Ted style.
Yeah. Oh, man.
If you want to support the podcast, which I know you do because you love us and you want us to have your buco bucks, there are many ways to do that, both free and not free. The non-free ways are buying our merch off our Teespring, supporting us on Patreon, which you get access to an extended episode where we talk about things like models from other painters we appreciate, things we learned in our own hobby, and also we give a section to give feedback to one of our patrons. So as a patron, you can submit a model for our feedback, and you can also submit topics for us to talk about, like in today's episode from the almighty magnanimous Stu, who John just fucking loves.
I love Stu so much. Unless Stu likes those fucking soft Oreo cakesters.
Yeah, and then he's dead to him.
And I hope you do get hit by a truck, Stu.
Other free ways to support the podcast, obviously watching it start to finish is helpful. We love seeing those higher retention numbers, and so does YouTube. Whitelisting our channel so that you watch every ad every 30 minutes is helpful. Telling your nerd friends about our podcast, giving us a review wherever you listen to podcasts. All those things are very helpful, and we appreciate them all.
Yeah. Oh, one thing we've never mentioned before, but I'm just thinking of it now. If the advertisers that advertise with Trapped Under Plastic, like this week we had the amazing Broken Anvil miniatures and Goblin's Hut, where you can get your Dirty Down goodies. If you buy stuff from those places, then they'll be like,
yeah.
oh yeah, hey, looks like it was worth it for us to give $20 to Scott and John for this advertisement. We charge more than $20, but not that much more. And so then they'll know that it's worthwhile to advertise with us, because we want to keep the advertisements that we have, the sponsors we have as companies we stand behind. We like their products. We use their products. Yeah. So if you see them on here, we use them. We like them. We love that Dirty Down.
We do.
So yeah, you could support them, and that supports us too.
Exactly. All right. I think that's it. Want to close this out?
Yeah. Today was a great day. We talked about so many wonderful things together. We talked about Oreo cakesters. We talked about Costco pizza.
Argus nuts.
We talked about, or the lack thereof, Argus's nuts. We talked about Stu in all his physical imperfections. We talked about the news. We talked about another golden demon. We talked about how we are all getting better every day as painters. And there's an end to this sentence, and I'm not ready for it yet.
You got to keep going.
So I'm just going to keep going.
We talked about NLS.
Yeah, we talked about so many things, and this has been the greatest episode since the last one. And until the next one, we will catch you on the
Flippity flop.